There's so many things you can say or even just talk about with Lamelo Ball. Almost his entire basketball career and life in general has been spent in the spotlight. To go along with that, he's played for many teams in his young basketball career, and that also means there's a lot of stories that come with it. Now, we all know he scored 92 points in a game, and I'm sure some of you thought this is what that video was going to be about, but no, that has nothing to do with it. The story I'm going to be bringing to you today about Lamelo Ball didn't even happen in the United States. It happened overseas when he was playing professionally, and I feel like this is when he earned his stripes and people started to fear his greatness. So without further ado, we're also on the road to 100k. Subscribe to the channel, do all that nice stuff. Now, let's get into the video. Our story starts and takes place in Lithuania. When he first went there after transferring from Chino Hills, everyone thought this was a huge mistake, and even I did myself. He was thriving at Chino Hills. He led them to a 65-3 record as a starting point guard, so why would his dad make him play for this overseas team? Originally, Lamelo was homeschooled, but that quickly changed when his family traveled over 5,000 miles to play for this team. People there, and even people here in the United States and ESPN analysts were already writing him off. They were saying how it's a terrible move and there's no way he's going to perform out there against grown men and put up crazy numbers. Here's what a very important person had to say over in that other league. It's illogical. The kid was on the best path possible to the NBA, a direct proven path. Why would you do this? I'm not sure many people agree with what Mr. Ball is doing. That quote right there sums up what everyone thought about the situation. Honestly, quite frankly, why would you believe in Lamelo Ball? He was a 16-year-old kid moving, playing overseas where a country he's not familiar with. Let me put it more into perspective for the people that don't quite get how hard this is. Instead of Lamelo playing against 15, 16, 17, and 18-year-olds, he's now playing against 32-year-olds. Whereas, for example, the kids he were playing against in America, if they didn't win the game, well, it's not a big deal. They're just going to go home, have fun, play Xbox or play PS4 or PS5 now. On the flip side, he's now playing against grown men who, if they don't play good, they're going to get cut from the team and won't be able to provide for their family. You think a grown man's going to let a 16, 17-year-old kid come out there and take his job and take away his ability to put food on the table for his family? I don't think so. Well, he could, but they're not just gonna hand it to him. And that's why everyone was really doubting Lamelo Ball. And I wouldn't even say it's doubting him, it's just being a realist. I remember this moment in time so vividly. Just when he was going there, everyone was talking so down on him and saying how he's gonna fold under the pressure and he's not ready for it. I gotta give credit where credit is due. Whether you dislike or like Lamelo, moving to a country you've never been to and living there and playing basketball with people you've never met is crazy. Most 16 and 17-year-olds are scared to go to their local gym and hoop. Imagine doing what he did. I think we talked about that enough and you get the gifs and point of everything. Going into that season and for that team, no one was believing in him. The biggest knock for Lamelo in this league, and this is according to people that were recruiting him at his practice, were saying that he's not able to defend bigger, stronger players and they're going to lock him up. They thought he was going to get overpowered on the defensive end, and for the offensive end, they said that the way he shoots and he takes too many crazy shots, it's going to get to him and it's going to affect his play style. Basically, if you don't understand what that means, they're saying that stuff in the BS he was doing in the US, he's not going to be able to pull off here. We do gotta admit that Lamelo at Chino Hills was doing some crazy stuff that no other high school really in America will let fly. I said let fly, maybe I mean let fly by, but you get what I'm trying to say. But one good and great thing he had going for him at the time was he hit a huge growth spurt in his time from Chino Hills and playing for this league. Even though he was tall, he was still on the skinny side, so he wasn't overpowering people. Here's where we start to lead into the day where I feel like it changed everyone's perspective on him. Of course, everyone was talking about their practices and how Lamelo was doing, and a lot of people were asking the coach how he looked. And the coach answered a question about how Lamelo was doing, and he said, quote unquote, Lamelo jumped in the air, looked at a different player, threw the pass to someone streaking down the baseline, and no one even saw it happen. The reporter didn't say anything. The coach looked at the reporter and he said, "Except for him." I'm not gonna bore you with the rest of the interview, but that awkward moment of silence and the way the coach said that, it gave me chills. It was also very clear to see that the coach wasn't a huge fan of him and he didn't want to make Lamelo's head any bigger than it already was. Come on now, we all know Lamelo's got that ego and swagger that every hooper tries to have. So if his coach over there would have said, "Oh yeah, it was crazy and the best thing I ever saw," Lamelo would have got a big head. With that being said, let's get into the interesting stuff. Later in that interview, the coach also added this, quote unquote, "Quote unquote, you can't control that little chipmunk. You tell him, don't shoot 40 footers. Next thing you know, he's shooting 40 footers. I know most people watching this aren't going to remember, but when that coach said that, that was at the same time when LaMelo was getting a ton of criticism for not playing that good. That quote that I just currently read was during a 2-game or 3-game stretch where LaMelo wasn't playing good at all and he was shooting bad shots. One thing to note that came into play is that he had a rocky start to the season like most people projected. He started the season with a game with 0 points where he didn't play that much. He also had a game with 13 points and 6 points. Just from those couple of games, you can tell those aren't really good numbers. After those games though, that's when the coach made a statement calling him a chipmunk and you can't shoot 40 footers, and he's shooting 40 footers. Shortly after that statement though, this is when he had a day that was a pivoting moment in his basketball career. He not only shut up that coach, but he shut up almost everybody else. Saying he found his groove may just be an understatement, because in a game after that, he went on for 31 points and 5 rebounds. Yes, his team wound up losing the game, but for him to put up 31 points after having some terrible games, it was something that we did not see coming. Keep in mind, I can't stress this enough, that he was only 16 years old. Unfortunately, in this performance that was unreal, his team did lose 141 to 133. But who cares? All people were talking about was how great he played. He had the world, that coach, everyone over there, everyone in the United States left speechless. This was big for him mentally too, because this now proved to himself that he could compete with older players. Let me clarify that a little. He knew he could compete with older players, but now he actually did it, so it helped him believe it even more that he could compete against grown men. And his goal was to get to the NBA, and when you get there, you're going to be playing against players like he was playing there. If that wasn't enough, in that same year, he had a game with 40 points, 11 assists, and 10 rebounds. So he had a 40-point triple-double. A lot of people think that was way more impressive than the 31 points and 5 rebounds, but it is somewhat statistically, but for fear-wise and the day that really changed everything for him, I don't even think it's close. Him putting up those 31 points and 5 rebounds even in a loss meant more to me, and I feel like it meant more to him. That was the game that got him going, got his teammates to believe in him, and everyone in that country to believe in him. You gotta keep in mind, I talked about it a lot, but his own coach even didn't believe in his play style. He said there's no way you can shoot those 40 footers. LaMelo didn't listen to him. Now, I don't suggest not listening to your coach, but hey, that's just the kind of kid he is. It's not a bad thing, don't get it wrong, but that's the way he plays, so he doesn't need to change that for anybody. When it was all said and done, and looking back on it now, I feel like this is the day that he did put the fear in people's eyes. I feel like me personally, I had a lot of guts and confidence for a 16-year-old, but I'm just gonna say I didn't have that much confidence. For a 16-year-old kid from the United States to go over to a foreign country that he's not used to and put up a 31-point performance with his own coach saying his play style doesn't even work, that's ridiculous. You could say he earned his stripes in this game, or he either put the fear in people's eyes, but I'm leaning more towards the fear side. Not really in a villain way, but in the way where people started to fear that he's the chosen one and he's destined for greatness. Did he have the greatest season and the greatest year over there? Absolutely not. It was an up and down season. But at the same time, what more could you ask out of him? He never played there before. He was way too young to even be playing there in the first place. The fact that he had a couple of games with 30 and 40 points is utterly ridiculous, at least in my eyes. And of course, we all know it worked out in the end, but I just think this was a crazy moment that nobody even talks about. When you talk about LaMelo Ball, or even think about him, a lot of stories come to mind, but in my eyes, and maybe in your eyes now, this has got to be one of the stories that should be brought up because this was a big moment in his life and basketball career. Let me know in the comment section what you think about this story and what's a good story for LaMelo Ball and if I should do more. But with all that being said, that's going to wrap up this video. Hope you guys enjoyed. Hope you guys learned something. If you're new to the channel, what are you doing? We're on the road to 100K. Hit that subscribe button, join the family, and leave a like for more. And as always, let's be great. I'm out, y'all. Peace.